Hello everyone, thanks for coming. And today I would like to give some keynotes for week 6 lectures. So first, the first thing that we should pay attention is a comparative advantage statement. Suppose two companies wish to borrow money. Company A can borrow at the fixed rate of A1%, and at the floating rate it is LIBOR plus A2%. So for company B, the fixed rate is B1%, and for the floating rate it is LIBOR plus B2%. So if A1 minus B1 is smaller than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in the fixed rate loan, and vice versa, which means that if A1 minus B1 is greater than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in floating rate loan. The second thing we should pay attention to is when we should use a swap. Suppose there are two companies, A and B. If A has a comparative advantage in one kind of loan but wants the other type, then A can do a swap with company B. But if A has a comparative advantage in one loan and wants exactly the same type of loan, then there's no need for a swap. A could just borrow money. Next, we should pay attention to how to calculate the new interest rate after doing the swap, or namely the interest rate discount. So suppose for borrowing money, A has the comparative advantage in the fixed rate loan, but it wants the floating rate loan. So if there's no back, then the discount will be A2 plus B1 minus A1 minus B2 over 2. So this is a comparative advantage over 2. If there is a bank, then we should take into account of the spread that the bank is taking, and the discount will be A2 plus B1 minus A1 minus B2 minus X minus the spread over 2. For evaluating the value of swap contracts, we should pay attention that for a swap, for interest rate swap, there could be multiple cash flows with different paying dates. So if we wish to discount them to their present value, the discounting factor is usually different, and the interest rate is RL, where RL is the LIBOR rate. We can also do currency swaps. So for borrowing money of two different types of currency, company A can borrow the currency C1 at the rate A1 and borrow currency C2 at the rate A2. For company B, the interest rate for C1 is B1 and the interest rate for C2 is B2. So similarly, if A1 minus B1 is smaller than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in currency C1. And if A1 minus B1 is larger than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in the currency C2. Also, if we wish to evaluate the currency swaps, we need to discount the future cash flows into their present values if we are asked to determine the present value. Previously, we are talking about borrowing money, and the swaps are usually for borrowing money, but the other side is to lend money. For company A, if it can lend money to earn the interest rate fixed, A1 fixed rate, and the floating rate, it could earn LIBOR plus A2. For company B, if the fixed rate it could earn is B1, and if the floating rate it could earn is LIBOR plus B2, then if A1 minus B1 is smaller than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in the floating rate interest. So it's opposite to the borrowing money, because now both sides are earning money. So if A1 minus B1 is larger than A2 minus B2, then A has a comparative advantage in earning the fixed rate interest. So that's different from the loan. And we should pay attention to this. Thanks for coming.